Yeah. It's going live on Periscope too. But we're live now. What's up, boys? Welcome back to well, actually, I don't even know if people know this is a show because at this point there's more lost tapes than there are actual released tapes. But no, we fucked up, and I don't know what happened to one of our episodes. It was the Conquest episode. So guess what, boys? We're doing Aegons Conquest again. Dang. Darn.
We're doing it live.
Darn. We have to do it again. So we're gonna do that. We're gonna do that now. Before we do that, we usually have a question from the show before. We forgot it, and you don't even know what show it was before this, so we're just gonna make one up. I think what do we go with? Favorite city?
Favorite city.
Yeah.
Favorite city. BAC, I'm gonna start with you, buddy.
I mean, off the top of my head, I would have to say my favorite city would be Ashai. That
Good call. Shy by the Shadow. Yeah. That's a good one.
Even though we don't, you
never even seen it. Yeah.
You never see it. All we hear about it. It's basically, a lot of black magic, a lot of sorcery. That's where people say that's where dragons might have originated from. That's where Melisandre comes from.
Well, and what's her name? Got her dragons basically from Ashai, but obviously Illyrio and Patis, but that's where he said they originated from, correct?
Right. Yeah. So it's a mystery. There's no children there. People really don't go there. I think it might have like a lot. I think it might be surrounded by like. It might be surrounded by like poison type of deal.
Isn't it? Aren't the rocks?
So it's kind of surrounded,
like a black
and it's
slime?
So that's the island right before. That's the island right before it.
Yeah. Again, I'm the mystery guy. I'm the theory guy. I think a lot of mysteries and theories come from this city. So, hey, it's my favorite city.
There you go.
That kind of leads into mine because I'm saying my favorite city is going to be Bravos. Bravos is by far the coolest. It's the most mysterious because it was built to hide from dragons. It was built to protect freedom, and it was built to form a powerhouse of a fucking country, man. Like city state. I guess, yeah, we'll consider them. They were a city state because I think most Game of Thrones, you're a city state when you're a monarchy at that point in time. I would consider you, right? Other than Westeros, which is a country, but
yeah. What I like about Bravos is what do they have? I mean, they have the assassins and they have the most powerful bank in the world.
Well, and you have to remember, they're Florence, so like they're a what's it called? A transportation hub to all of Europe. They have channels that literally are their streets.
Yep.
Florence is famous for their crustaceans. So the dyes, the colors that come out of there are huge. So it's a trading hub.
Actually, I think it's Venice, not Florence.
Or Venice. Oh, Florence. What am I saying? Yeah. Venice. I'm sorry.
Canals, yeah.
I'm sorry. Yeah. Florence, actually, very nice place. Venice, not nice. It's not nice. I wouldn't have a bad time. So what do you have, Ned?
Are we talking about on Essos or all over?
So anywhere. Let's go. Okay. Actually, fuck it. We're all outside of Westeros. Go outside of Westeros.
Go outside of Westeros. Okay. And I'm trying to recall it. Is it Navros? Where is Navos?
What, the butterflies?
No. I'm sorry. Then now I'm screwing up. And now you caught me off guard. So because my favorite city is White Harbor, but
I'd like to hear about White Harbor.
I love White Harbor. That last chapter in the 5th book is one of my favorite chapters with Lord
Manderley.
Lord Manderley. That's one of my favorite chapters. It's just like a political chapter. It's like you're at like I don't know. It was something about it I just love. It was like watching an episode of the old Kevin Spacey show. What was that? The president one. That like it was a great chapter.
Yeah.
Whose perspective was that? Was that
Davos? Yeah. But I like it for a number of reasons. First of all, because I like the fact that it was not really occupied at the time. When House Manderley was driven out of their homelands, which was in the Riverlands, I think they were one of the losers. This goes back much further than that, but they got pushed out of their territory in the Reach, right? They were people from the Reach. and they fled north. And I'm not clear, but I do know, without knowing the details, that one of the kings in the north, one of the Starks in Winterfell, gave them comfort and provided aid and gave them White Harbor as their home. They allowed them to keep their southern gods because they're not northern.
Yeah.
They're not
so a lot of people might not know this, but up north there is a city called Whitehall. It is a port city. It's basically like White Harbor, excuse me. Whitehall, very different. So it is a port city, but it's kind of like the most southern tip of the north.
Yeah. It's kind of water.
Yeah, it's kind of like a Philadelphia type city where it's up north, but it's really just like it's a port, Yep. So
it's very wealthy.
It's a very wealthy area.
In seal skins, silver. Mm-hmm. Also, there was a pretty cool event that happened where they were under attack. The Manderleys were under attack, and the wolves came down from Winterfell, and I think it was the Ironborn. No, from Skagos. Skagosi attacked.
Skagosi, yeah.
They attacked White Harbor thousands of years ago, and they ended up.
Are they the ones that
cannibals?
The cannibals, yeah.
Yes. Right, yeah. But this Lord of Winterfell, who I don't recall what his name is, the King of the North, hung the bodies from the trees as a token to the old gods. And since then, the House Manderley has always pledged its fealty.
So they're super loyal to the Starks, correct?
Right.
Like they go out of their way to be loyal, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Like they're trying to smuggle at the end of the 5th book. They're trying to smuggle, I believe, what's his name? The youngest Rickon. They have Rickon with them, right?
Right.
Okay.
Well, Rickon is in Skagos right now, and Davos.
Yeah, they're trying to save him or something, right?
Davos is going to get Rickon right now.
But my favorite, that from that perspective, from Davos' perspective, like as he's coming into there, and you remember he started in one of the islands near the Erie, and those were cool people too. I forgot the name of those islands. The sisters, the 3 sisters, right? And the people had webbed fingers and stuff. So that was pretty cool. But then when he gets there, though, he says one of his first captains told him that each city has its own smell. Like King's Landing smells like an old whore. And
you can smell it 6 miles away.
Right. But White Harbor smells exactly what it is. Clean, salty, crispy. North, it's cold. And it has a great smell to it. And also it's kind of cool because when you're the architecture of the city is all dedicated to like, mermen, mermaids, very, very nautical stuff. And the hall,
it's cool.
The Manderley Hall is the best.
I love how they treat that city. It's kind of like they're supposed to be like the shamed city up north because they're like really a southern family, and they keep their old, the new gods and all that other stuff up north. But like, I think it's the fact, and I brought it up earlier, is like that staunch pride they have for the Starks, that everybody respects them for that.
Because they're rich.
Rich, that too, and they're rich as fuck.
It's called the night of the river. Their city sits on a bay that becomes that feeds up to a river that goes pretty far north. So they make a lot of money on duties and levies and fees. They also collect the taxes for the Starks. So the port
the port tax. Yeah,
Lord Manderley, even though the family trait is they all look like walruses. They're all overweight. They have big blonde mustaches. Remember in the first book when
they're said to be he looks like a walrus himself,
right?
Like that's yeah.
So remember in the first book, Bran was sitting in for Robb, and Lord Manderley said, I could start a new mint for you, brother. And I could mint all the coins your brother needs. Like he wanted to be the banker. He's a very sharp guy. There's smart people.
Now, other than
and they're loyal.
Fuck it. DC's sitting here watching this. No one's watching. Other than DC, what's the name of that episode? He's probably gone by now. I want to know the name of the episode. He said that he likes the episode when Paulie and Chrissy are chasing the Russians through Winterfell. I said that would be like, I want him to say what it was, because I want to think of a good name for that, because we could. I think it has a funny name, but I don't know. He must have left. I don't know how I just put that comment up there.
The Pine Barrens.
The Pine Barrens. Okay, so we'll have to think of something better.
Anyways, so we're so do we have all our 3 cities? No. Did you pick? Oh, you picked Bravos.
Yeah, I picked Bravos.
So we got 3.
That was actually perfect. 10 minutes, and we have 3 viewers.
There we go.
Nice.
Let's go. That's
We
almost more
three
than the
have
show. Yeah.
3-year-olds.
Yeah. Oh, now there's none.
Ace Card is on there. Oh God.
Oh, well, see you later.
Well, okay.
So we are going into the Conquest for the second time. Let's just do it again.
BACs
Fuck it.
our poet laureate when it comes to the Conquest.
So he really
Yes,
is.
start us off.
Yeah. He's basically our like our
Wikipedia.
prophet when it comes to everything.
Well, Ned's the geographic guy, and
I'm the
Yeah.
host. That's all.
you're the host.
I just keep
You're-
up.
We all do good.
Yeah.
All right. So yeah, I mean, I guess we'll start with Aegor.
His dad?
Or his grandfather.
Yeah, I think it was Aegor. Or he's irrelevant.
Adar.
He means
Adar.
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 That's how irrelevant
Aenar.
he was. Yeah,
Yeah.
Aenar. Yeah.
All right, so Aenar comes over. They leave Valyria because either his daughter has a dream that the doom of Valyria is coming, or they get thrown out of court. So now they take over Dragonstone. They're there for about 100 years before Aegon, his sisters Rhaenys and Visenya are born. And, they visit Westeros over their childhood. They go to Old Town. They get a little bit familiar. And what happens is Aegon basically has a decision to himself. Does he want to take over Essos, or does he want to go to Westeros? And
I
think-
don't know if anybody has watched the show. Westeros would be the right choice there.
Yes.
Yeah.
Westeros. Yeah. Exactly.
Sorry.
Yeah, so this isn't something that he just woke up and decided that this is what he wanted to do. He waited till he was 27 years old. He plotted out what he wanted to do. He carved out the famous table that Stannis has in his scenes in the show. So they fly over to Aegon's fort, and they decided to establish themselves there. And why don't you guys talk a little bit about once they go over to Westeros?
So Ned, hit everybody with everybody. Hit DEC.
Hit DEC.
Hit DEC with why King's Landing was a good spot, and all right, let's call it by its formal name at that time. Why Aegon's Fort was good at that time and what it turned into.
Well, it's in Blackwater Bay, so it's perfect for a ship port. It was also unoccupied at the time. And I don't recall whose lands it actually were, but there was no one there. There was no small folk. There were no people there. So he set up and started building, have his people from Dragonstone start building what they called Aegon's Fort, which was really like a Norman, or Anglo-Saxon, like Bailey and Mott type of castle, wood and stone. That was it. Very rudimentary, right? But from there, with all the 7 kingdoms, still, nitpicking at each other, plotting against each other. There was no real unity. He saw an opportunity to unite them all under one kingdom. It was a big job to do. And it made his intentions known, but not officially.
That's a pretty badass fucking thing to do.
Yeah.
I know he has dragons, but let's go to back to some.
Right.
Well, yeah, exactly. So it's not as bad as for him, but let's think of like people, because a lot of this is based off history. Like people in the past that just saw Europe and they're like, fuck it, I'll beat every one of your fucking armies and we're just going to call each other one army and then we're going to beat them and their name is France. But like, that's a badass. Like to be that guy is a badass. Like what I know it's based off, if you want to go a little bit into who Aegon is really based off of right now and how it kind of resembles that.
Right. That's William the Conqueror of who was a descendant of the Vikings, was the Duke of Normandy.
Dude,
and he invaded England when he thought that he was supposed to be the legitimate heir to a king who was dying childless.
Yeah.
That's how that started.
All right,
Vikings,
so basically,
Vikings are the best.
We could do Vikings. Oh, we could do that. Let's do Vikings.
episode.
Ragnar Longhorn.
Go ahead. I can't talk about them.
I know.
So
Mixing metaphors.
Aegon Fort is pretty much in the middle of the Stormlands and the Riverlands.
Yeah.
Okay. So you have Durandons that are in control of the Storm's End. You have Harren the Black that's in control of the Riverlands.
It was an Ironborn.
Ironborn, yep. And at this point, the Ironborn actually have a castle on Westeros, which, once Aegon's done with them, doesn't happen again for a very long time.
Very long time.
Right. So, so these two are battling. And, Aegon is biding his time right now. He's getting set up. And Durandon sends over a convoy to Aegon saying, I need your help. Help me defeat my enemy. The Ironborn are going to, once they're done with Harrenhal, they're going to try to conquer the Stormlands. Okay. Now, the interesting thing about this is that Aegon doesn't turn it down. Okay. So he was going to help Durandon's defeat the Ironborn, but he doesn't want another wife. Basically, they offered him a wife and lands. He did a counter offer saying, I'll help you defeat your enemies. You can give your wife to my best friend, the Baratheon. Okay.
Orys. Yep.
Orys Baratheon. So he takes this as an insult per Westerosi history, Westerosi politics, however you want to say it. It's an insult to marry a highborn daughter to a bastard.
Right.
So he cuts off the hands and says, this is the only hands your bastard will have of mine.
That's a great line. Yeah. That's a great fucking line. That's a great line. Dude, you're George Martin. You're that dude, no. And you write that line, really? You're just like, boom. Like, fucking score.
A simple no would have sufficed.
Yeah, exactly. Like, that's just like, fuck you, dude. Like, don't fucking talk to me that way. But I don't got no hands.
Right. I guess that's why
that's a great scene. You portrayed that beautifully.
Thank you, buddy. Argilac the arrogant. So, that's an example of him being arrogant.
Yep. That name stands out every time, even if you're reading it. Like, I listen to it, but if you're even reading through a book and you see Argilac the Arrogant, I don't know why, just like your eyes stop immediately. I love that name. I think that's a great name.
Great nicknames, though.
Yeah.
They're all
there's some of the best names in Game of Thrones. So BAC, we leave Argilac, and then where do we go to next? Because that's kind of a big one.
Yeah. So Ned, why don't you take us through the first attack? Well, before we do that, I'd like to touch on. So Aegon, we all know that Aegon's point of landing in Westeros and Aegon Fort was to be king of Westeros, right? So, I mean, he used this insult from Argilac to send out the ravens to all the kings in the country saying, you are no longer kings.
This letter is a great letter.
I'm your one and only king. And, again, I mentioned this in our Lost episode where Aegon matched everyone's intensity. He said, if you bow down, then keep your castle, keep your land, keep your wealth, keep your castle. You'll just be a lord instead of a king, and everything's fine. But, so basically, he sent out the ravens. I'm your king. And people, we're not going to take that lying down. And that takes us to Harrenhal.
Yep. Go ahead.
So let's explain Harrenhal, first of all. Harrenhal was a castle that's like just an asshole's castle. It's built. I like, we did this last time. I don't remember if I got this, but I'm happy I just did because I want to talk about fucking Harrenhal. Can you imagine like getting done with Harrenhal and just being like, shit, I don't like it. Dude, it kind of looks like a fucking asshole.
Can we move that tower over there?
Yeah, it's just like, it's dark and shit. And that, I know that's after dragons burnt it down, but like, that was like 300 years ago. Like, clean it up, but like, still, it's just like, it's not in a very comforting place. It's horrid there. Yeah. And it was supposed to be the biggest. So Harrenhal, the biggest castle in all of Westeros until it was burnt down by a fucking dragon. So Harren the Black basically He's before we even start this, Hair in the Black is actually a Ironborn. So he's from from Pike. Now were the Greyjoys in power, Ned, at this time in Pike?
His name was Harren Hoare. Hoare, which by the way happens to be one of my ancestors' name from Ireland.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah. She got married.
I just thought that was a way he just got away with just saying the word whore.
She got married real quick to dump that name. She married Sullivan or something. I'm dumping the name whore big time.
I need a basic ass name like Robinson.
Yeah, right, exactly. But yeah, he was so he had done some reaving with his sons. He was an older guy at the time. The Riverlands kind of caved in they're pretty easy prey, right?
So I mean, they're
on the banks of the was it the Red Fork of the
I can never figure those out. I don't even try, because every time I look at the map of those rivers, I'm just like, why did they pick colors? That's literally the opposite way of doing this. And then why did they pick these colors?
Yeah,
it
which
just
end up being Tully colors, by the way, red and blue, because the red branch in the blue branch.
Yeah,
but so he had now just, and then John, you could take it from here, but keep in mind too, he bled the countryside building Harrenhal as it was, as you said, like the biggest castle by far, and he just finished it.
Literally, that too.
Finished, and then all of a sudden,
and then fucking. All right, so let's get into what happens.
Contractors.
So basically, Aegon comes here, and I'm not going to get the exact details right. So when I get it wrong, you guys cut in, say the right thing, and then I'll continue with the story that I know it as, because it's just badass. All right, so basically, Aegon gets there, and he lands there. I believe it's Aegon that lands there first. Yeah, it's got to be, because this is, a lot of people actually screw this up, BAC. We said this right before we started. This was after the Argilac stuff. A lot of people mix that up. I don't know why. But he lands there with Balerion. I mean, Balerion's the biggest dragon, I think, that's existed in a long time, and probably the first that they've seen there. And he says, basically the same thing he said to every other king. Like, listen, you could bend the knee, lay your sword down so I can make it into a very cool chair that they'll ruin on an HBO show, or you can fight, and we can go at it. And Hair in the Black says to go fuck yourself. Basically, he's like, I built these giant walls out of stone. Stone don't melt, bud. And he's like, all right, I'm just this. Last warning, just want you to know. He's like, go fuck yourself, basically. And if you guys want to throw the real details of what he says there, but
well,
I think it was go fuck yourself.
It was go fuck yourself.
Well, you know what?
These walls don't burn, big.
Right. It's actually one of my favorite lines, because it has so much meaning, and it has a lot of foreshadowing that I think to myself coming in upcoming books. Once Harren tells him to go fuck himself, he says,
he really does say go fuck yourself, doesn't he?
He says, your line will end tomorrow.
Right. Oh God, this guy is you are so good at these drops.
So I think
like
to myself, dictionary. And I don't know how big of a detour you want to take, but I'm thinking to myself, are the Tyrells going to be extinct? Are the Baratheons going to be extinct? Are the Starks and the Lannisters? I think about all the housing. I think about all the families. And before the story's done, a lot of houses in the show,
they're wiped out. I mean, we know
extinct.
One of the ones coming up, I think, if not next, right after that, is the
Gardeners.
With the Gardeners, and they were the lords and the ladies of the Reach, and I mean, they're just fucking destroyed. I mean, that's why, and we'll get into that later, but I mean, this isn't, you're not just messing with the Lannisters and
right.
Khaleesi, and Khaleesi is a different story. She did have dragons, but Cersei, at least, you're not facing these kind of families. You're facing people like that have dragons and will just literally end your line. So let's get into it a little bit more. I mean, he promises him before he leaves that conversation, like BAC said, your line will end tonight. Later that night, Harren is woken up to basically the two other dragons come and help, or is it just Balerion?
No, it's just Balerion.
So that proves a lot. I won't even get into
One
that.
dragon.
One motherfucking dragon does all that. This is the biggest castle that was ever built, and he turns it into a kind of a really hot rock for a second. But a big point that George puts in this part of the book is, yeah, he said that stone doesn't burn, and Aegon was kind of wasting his time when he was trying to burn it. But this is like a huge castle, so everything else isn't made out of stone. So you got your doors made out of wood. You got everything else really made out of wood that was starting to catch small fires at here and there. But sooner or later, Aegon kind of caught Harrenhal ablaze for a stone castle. You know what I mean? That's not something you should have been able to do with Harrenhal. That was something that was said about Harrenhal to be historic about it. It doesn't burn. It's made of all, you know.
Right.
And Valyrian was so big that he basically turned it, like I said, into a wax candle, melted the stone. I know when Arya's in the show, when she's there, they're walking upon it, and I think she says it looks like a candle, like it looks like a burnt out candle.
Yeah.
But he kind of just massacres House Orr. I think he ends the line there, right?
He does. Yep.
Good. They're, if you read that book, they're fucking assholes.
Yeah.
That house is a bunch of assholes. I'm happy. Yeah. But that kind of leads Aegon with the W, and he rides out of there with the big one, or I guess that would be 2-0 on his back. He didn't win the first one. The what's their names did, but I mean, hey, let's head down to the next place. What do you got next, Ned?
Well, that would take us back to the Stormlands, correct, BAC?
Yeah. Oh, he has that.
Yep. So
my bad.
No, that's okay. So I think I did this too on the Lost Tapes, but I don't. Maybe I didn't.
The Lost
BAC did. But yeah. So now, of course, he turns now. He's got a W under his belt. He turns back to his original problem, which is he is straddling the Riverlands and the Stormlands, and he's now going to take care of the person, the arrogant the arrogant king to his south at Storm's End, the most impregnable castle supposedly built by Bran the Builder and by the Children of the Forest. Standing, you know, the house Durand, correct if I tell me if I get that wrong, but they built that Storm's battle with the gods. He finally built a castle that they couldn't knock down. They've been there a long time. They're an original Andal family, right? So yes. Again, it's him though by himself. He doesn't call in his sisters or their dragons. So this is still just single dragon battle.
Well, Ned, can I stop you right there real quick? Sure. We have to remember at this time, and that's I think what I forgot to bring up when I said the first two battles are confused. These, like, we have to remember they landed at Aegon Fort and went to war. Like, they established Aegon Fort and then they attacked, right? Like, there was no fucking around there for any amount of time. Yeah. Like, they separated into their separate facets and went to war. So
correct.
When Ned says that, he didn't bring in his sisters to fight the battle. Like that, I think these were their first orders because they did do that coming up. But it's just like that was like a big thing for them, you know. Yeah.
Aegon wasn't at Storm's End.
No, I know. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. He wasn't there. It was just Baratheon.
It was Rhaenys and Baratheon.
Yeah, Rhaenys was there because it was a big sea battle, and the dragon was virtually useless in the battle.
Right, because it was raining, because there was a storm.
Yes. So dragons are
the last storm.
Dragons are constantly seen as these nuclear weapons, blah blah blah, and fire breathers. Well, yeah, no shit, they are. But like, I did love one thing about the last season was how vulnerable they did make the dragons.
Well, in the books, remember too, the only way
they're vulnerable.
Tyrion, not really. Tyrion says from reading.
Yeah, but think of the first time you see one up, dude. It's getting slaughtered.
Which one? Don't quote
Drogon.
Drogon getting slaughtered?
Yeah, he's getting crushed in that pit. Like that's the first time you actually like see him like fight, and he's getting like, dude, he's getting murked with spear. He's almost dying.
Okay, on the show now, right?
No, even in the book that way too.
But he's not, because the only way to kill a dragon is through its eyes. That's the only way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I thought they were stabbing it. Like I thought legit they were saying that the whole time, and Khaleesi was seeing the dragon getting stabbed, and she's like, "That's not supposed to happen."
Well, it's her children, but they weren't really breaking the skin too badly. They were getting they were like perforating his wings and bouncing off his scales. I think Tyrion finds in the book, in one of the books, he finds one of his favorite passages from dragon lore was that death comes out of the dragon's mouth, but death to the dragon comes through their eyes. And even all those stories that the dragon.
I don't like that. I don't like that. I'd rather the dragon be vulnerable.
Yeah.
Because it's like you have to use it strategically. And that's what brings me back to me saying, like, they never had all the dragons in one spot, because it's like you never have the president and the vice president in one spot. Like, it's just a risk, you know? Like, yeah, you have 3 dragons. I'm going to bring them into every battle and just murder everybody. But, like, what happens if, like, this place knows how to kill a dragon and we just lose all 3?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's definitely other ways to kill a dragon. It's just more
I
rare.
think that.
There's like, I think a dragon.
Not sure.
I think a dragon cuts off. I
was talking about dragons.
I think a dragon bites off another dragon's head.
Other dragons, yes.
Yeah. Other dragons.
We don't know. Okay, we're going down a rabbit hole.
Well, so there you go.
But we don't know.
Other dragons killed them.
And I think dragons can be poisoned. I think the maesters poison dragons.
I think that might be the case. So we don't know how they were killed in the dragon pit at the end of the Dance of Dragons. Remember when
that's true.
I think it was the church.
Crowd.
Yeah,
the
right.
Crowd comes.
But I don't factor in anything in the show that.
Yeah, but like I see.
I don't. But in the books, they can't really be hurt too badly by the weapons they have at the time that we're reading in the books.
Right.
See, I do reference the show though, because like if George saw something. I think if George saw something too wrong, he would fix it. You don't think so?
Maybe. Yeah.
I think the ending was his, and he just tested it, and it sucked. Because we know it was his.
Yeah.
So well, the show does. The last season stunk.
So going back to where I fucked up the battle.
Yeah, that was on me.
Total.
Aegon killed everyone.
No, I was getting to
slaughtered and murdered them.
I was getting to Barath or Ori's and the wet dragons, but I forgot that he wasn't there. I thought he was there.
Yeah. No, it was Rhaena, because they said like they should have sent what's her name? The other sister, but she said, but I think in the book they say like it was actually better to have her, because the Rhaena's dragon was able to navigate through the storm so much better, because you know how that dragon was like swifter and stuff like
that. And it did do a lot of damage on the ground.
Talk. It didn't, but that's why they liked that it was a sea battle, but then it started fucking raining.
All right, so Ned, what happened?
Oh, he lost.
He lost.
No, I think they made a last stand where Argilac set up the last defense on a hill, even though he was still losing. I think he was doing pretty well, but then he eventually was losing. And then he met Orys Baratheon for one last, almost a battle, one-on-one battle, but I guess it was. I think they were surrounded by others, but they squared off. Orys Baratheon slew the last Storm King, bringing an end to a long reign of that family. He did end up doing exactly what the first offer was from Aegon. He took the daughter, he took her castle, he took their standard too. He didn't change the standard. It's still the Baratheon ram was
sigil.
Was the sigil of the
crown stag.
Stags. So he did everything. He did it pretty honorably. Even kept the colors too. But then he just changed the name to House Baratheon and started his own line. So
I think that's a beautiful story.
I do too. And he's got a cool story later on too. He ends up losing a sword hand in Dorne, and he's a cool guy.
Yeah. I guess what I would say about the battle was, it was a pretty epic battle. So, the nuclear weapon was sidelined for the majority of the battle. It was, man to man, battle to battle. Argilac, he did a very good job. What happened was, it was actually, they're going back and forth. They make a final stand where Argilac was actually storming the hill, where Rhaenys and their men were defending it with a spear. So once Argilac, it was almost like a moment of bliss where they get through the soldiers that have the spears, they break through the line. So now they're thinking to themselves, we broke through the line, now let's kill all these people. And it was, I don't know if it was designed as a trap, but it ended up being a trap because as soon as they busted through the front, Rhaenys is on the ground with her dragon and just burns them all.
Yep.
Right.
Yeah.
And
so it was still a very very useful weapon. It just wasn't airborne.
Right.
Soggy.
It was break in case of emergency. Yeah. Broken in case of an emergency.
So I do want to talk about this for 1 second. This fight was even crazier than the first one because of the rain. So like it was raining, they were downhill, but on the other side of the hill they had like a trap set up. So it's basically like what they did in Braveheart. Great move. That's a great move. And this is another beautiful one because I'm telling you, how he does that, all that stuff at the end with the daughter, like that. I love that. Like they bring her in broken, like bloodied, and now like naked. All these guys are naked and everything, and Baratheon just like takes his cloak off, wraps her up, and just eats dinner with her right in front of them, and just like scolds the shit out of them for treating her like that. I love that shit.
Yeah, that's a good story.
That's what you just when you know like they're telling the story of a good group of leaders.
Yeah.
Like from and they weren't next to each other saying like, you need to do this, you need to do that. They were just down to the core good guys, which is good, which even though they were still bad guys. What else you got?
I mean, I would just say it's not really important, but what happened was, so Oris gets off, meets Argilac, and, again, offers him peace. You fought bravely. Your men fought bravely. If you submit now, you can still be lord of your castle, and for better or worse, Argilac died with the sword in his hand, and that's the way he wanted to go. What I would say happens after that, his daughter basically says, screw you guys, takes over the castle, and says she is now king of the castle, and the war's not over. And then her men actually turn on her.
Right.
And that's how she gets turned over, bloodied and naked, to Oris.
Yeah.
Now, they get the trident. They get these kind of things like Pike. They make these people, after they submit, Lord Paramount. So is this the first time that kind of stuff was used in this world?
I think so.
Right? So they're at the same time
supreme lords over lesser lords.
So this is the first time they're having literal monarchy on a state to federal level, basically. I'll put it that way. A multi-level like monarchy where I think so like that's never mentioned enough, like where I think it's like it's a pretty revolutionary government they're starting here on this conquest too. Like doesn't anyone notice that?
But you know what?
Suddenly every king bent the knee because of the dragon. Like that's what they're trying to depict.
But then wouldn't each king have petty lords beneath him?
Well, they still do.
I guess
they still do. Yeah, they're bannermen. That's their bannermen.
Yeah, no, I know. But I wonder if they did Lord Paramount. No, you're right. I guess it would be the first time. Lord Paramount.
Well, and then they were made warden of and that kind of stuff.
Four of them were, northwest, south, and east. Right.
Yeah. Well,
Lord
John,
Paramount.
I'm glad that you brought that up because there's something that I wanted to talk about pertaining to that, and I wasn't sure when to throw it in. Throughout the books and throughout the show, you always hear stories about how the North wants its freedom. Dorne does it unbent, unbound, unbroken. The Iron Islands in the show, they want their freedom. And, all throughout history, it was the 9 penny kings. It was the War of the 5 Kings. It's like, I think, all throughout the history, whether it's 300 years ago, whether it's 300 years in the future, I think that all of the different countries or different kingdoms, they all want their freedom to a certain extent.
Yeah.
And that's why they claim themselves kings over and over again, you know?
Right.
It's just that was at the time of like everybody wanted to like they wanted change of government, but it was like that wasn't invented yet. That's why I'm saying this was like such a revolutionary style of government. It's just funny how like the fact that there was a dragon there, kings were worthy to just be like, you know what, fuck what we've been doing. You know, like what we do with that fucking guy says. You know, like that's I always laughed at the little thing he threw in right there that a lot of people don't notice. All right, so we leave.
So, the
we leave
Riverlands
there.
and Stormlands
Yeah.
are now secure.
So we got a Lord Paramounts of those two places. Where do we head next, BAC?
I think we go to the Westerlands, where
Mhm.
the Lannisters and the Gardeners put their forces together. And Ned, what are they? About 50,000 strong?
Yep. It's
So
a
this is
very
like-
large combined army, correct?
This is like the first time well, obviously, I mean, there were seven kings in Westeros at this time. They were all warring. So like this is kind of the first time where two lords or two kings of Westeros looked at each other and like, you know what? How about we team up and try to beat the
Right.
dragons
Right.
because these guys are done. And we're next. And so Ned, you know what? I'm going to take this one a little bit.
Sure.
So
Yeah.
the forces forces of Lannister, forces of House Gardner. So it's basically what we see in the show, showing what's it called, the Tyrells and the Lannisters team up at the end there. But obviously that's so far down the road and fake, we don't care. But they meet up and they all assemble at a place called, which will later be called the Field of Fire. Field of Fire is in the Reach. House Lannister and House Gardner, they're both from the West. So I wish they showed Castle Rock more because people don't realize what the Lannisters are from. They're where their part of the country is. It's like desert, like Africa right there.
Mhm.
It's like there's love. That's why they're the lion, because like it's desert, like legit, like their climate is like Africa down there. So and then House Gardner who was lords of the Reach at the time, and that's who the Tyrells will later take over for after this. So I'll continue on this one, but BAC, give me the breakdown of what happened on the Field of Fire. I'll say what happened post Field of Fire, but I know you're going to give me some gritty details that I'm going to miss.
Well, I mean, just a random thing to bring up is that, the history is written by the winners, right? And
Best.
throughout history, what have you. But, take a look at it from the Lannisters and the Gardners side. They have this foreign conqueror coming in. They called all their banners. Everyone, as much as they can, they are coming together as one united front, could be considered the good guys to fight against this evil invader.
Right.
So
you have the richest family in the continent with the Lannisters, not the oldest, because Lan the Clever took it from the Casterly Rock from the Casterlys.
Good story.
But a great story. But Garth,
I love the Age of Heroes. Those little like they're basically like he uses it kind of as folklore. I love how he did that. I love it because it makes it so interesting that you want to find out about it and you want all these prequels to be about that.
And the Reach is the breadbasket of the entire continent. They feed everyone. So Garth the Gardener, sowed his seed. That's another great story.
All those ones are.
Yeah.
He's just a pimp, basically. They said,
and he comes from the time of the first Storm King. So he goes way back. He's an Andal too, and he goes way back. So so you have the richest, and you have the two richest families, and you have the material wealth of Casterly Rock, and you've got the supply wealth of the Reach. They're a pretty strong army,
right?
Yeah,
right. So they meet. This is the first and only time that Balerion, Meraxes, and Vhagar took to battle together. And,
yes.
Yep.
Yeah.
Now,
I mean,
all three.
Do we want to break down why all three were there?
Sure. Go ahead.
That's getting deep. That's kind of getting deep. Okay. All right. So why all three of them were there was this is kind of the first time they saw the two kings coming together and they saw the force on the other side. So this is why I'm bringing it up, because I brought it up before. They saw the vulnerability of the dragons, all three of them being there, and they kind of were prepped for that. Like, I brought up the fact that people don't realize that dragons are vulnerable. I also love how George will then take the fact that, the dragon riders know they're vulnerable too, and they know how to counteract that. So they fly very low that day because they know, they know the air is, well, BAC was just saying the air is real. Yeah, peak weather conditions for dragon flying.
Right.
So they fly real low. They make sure they get under the air. Like they do it all the smart way. And the battle, the dragons are fighting from, I would say, the beginning of the very end of a battle to the end of a battle, because basically when the dragon comes in, it's over, right?
Yeah, I mean, maybe I'm wrong. I think that this was a slaughter.
It was a slaughter. So that's what I'm saying. They came in at the battle started, and there was BAC. I'm saying, like, there was like a huge war going on, and then dragons came through and they just fucking ended it immediately
by burning the fields.
Burning the field. Like, that's why I was bringing up the strategy of, like, you know, the dragons are vulnerable or better, because, like, if they're vulnerable, that makes people think harder, you know? So it's kind of like, oh, well, you can only kill this by shooting it in the eyeball. Like, okay, then I feel like I'm invincible then. You know, I like how he makes them feel like they're still human, you know? Like, that's the biggest thing I pull out of the dragons that he did for the Conquest. And, like, I love that part. But okay, so let's go back to the part where the dragons were taking their fire, blowing it on nice and dry grass where all these men were fighting. They just wipe them out. So surprisingly, the Lannister Lord, what was his name? Lan?
No,
because that's no, it was Geralt.
No,
maybe
no.
Whatever. But the Lannister Lord at the time made it out of the battle alive. I don't think the Gardener did.
He did not.
But yeah, he did not. So that family was basically that United did his son. So that family was basically wiped off the history books. So
that's two families.
So that's two families basically gone from the Conquest. That's not just families gone. Those are the families that are ruling a whole kingdom in Westeros. That's like saying, like, oh yeah, that guy showed up season 6 and that whole family was gone because he showed up. Right. That's basically what happened. Which I wish we could see that. So Aegon goes back to the Reach and he goes to High Garden, and the Tyrells are there. So the Tyrells were the stewards of the house. They surrendered. I would be like, here you go. Here's the keys to the castle, Mr. Dragon Rider. I am just a humble servant. You burnt my lord. And he gives him Lord Paramount of the Reach. He's just like, yo, I just kind of want to show off my dragon, everybody, and no one's understanding that. Everyone's fighting and not going with my revolutionary style of new government, and he just did it again, what he did in Harrenhal. So we'll take win number, I believe, what's that now, 3 for Aegon.
3.
I also can't help to think that it was Lauren, by the way, Lauren Lannister. There you go. I can't help to think that he kind of maneuvered the battle so that the Gardeners got the brunt of the dragon.
Oh well, yeah, that's
typical Lannister move, right? Yeah.
The small like signaling cues that he has to his like his families and his world building, and
we should point out we forgot, but when Harrenhal fell and the whores were driven out or exterminated, it was the Tullys who were named Lord Paramount of the Riverlands. That was their big.
Yeah, because the whole basically the Iron Islands controlled the Riverlands are so easy to take over. People don't really like. It's basically the land that is when a war starts in Westeros. That's the land that's just shit. It's like France, basically. You know what I mean? Like, it's just like, yeah, we'll fight our wars here. They got a bunch of farms and shit,
right?
And there's rivers we could fucking outrun each other from. But it's in the middle of the country too, so everybody has to go through there. The King's Road that wasn't there at that time, but.
Because the rivers connect everything. Yeah.
So okay, so the Lord of the Reach. Boom. Give me your sword. Okay, that sword was burnt down. Lannister bends the knee. Bends the knee, Lord of
the Rock.
The Rock.
No, well, he's King of the Rock. Sorry.
Well, no. Okay. I'm sorry. So it would be Lord Paramount of the Westerlands because he's Warden of the West by the time Robert Baratheon's around. Obviously, that name must have just changed. And then we kind of have. I love how the North does this every time, man.
Wait. Hold on. Yeah, I mean, just to wrap up what happened, I guess we can all agree that the Tyrells are the most, the family that benefited the most from Aegon's conquest.
I agree.
Yeah, definitely.
They were like stewardesses of the gardeners,
and
now they're taking over.
So they were like the Cassell or the what's the ones up north that are kind of like the stewards to Ned Stark? The Cassells.
Oh, castles. Yeah.
Castles. Yeah.
So they benefit hugely, and they benefit for hundreds of years. And I
mean, they're the most powerful house by the time Robert Baratheon's around.
Yeah,
they're the most.
They're very powerful.
Yeah,
right now in the books, they're the most powerful house. And no, it's funny in the books right there. We're learning about the fake gold they're using too. That it's like 3/4 of an ounce off every one. Remember that? It's right at the end. That's the best.
And then the Lannisters, I don't think Aegon was thinking about this, but when you think about it, the Lannisters definitely maneuvered themselves to survive that battle, and Lannisters always pay their debts. So what debt do they owe to Aegon? They owe their life, they own their castle, their sword, and the Lannisters were loyal to the Targaryens right up until the Mad King Aerys.
Correct.
So they earned themselves 300 years of loyalty right on that battle. Yeah.
Now let's do this real quick. Let's do a check-in on our resident conspiracy theory expert, BAC. Are there any huge conspiracy theories like at this time going down? I don't think so, right? Like that's the one thing about this time frame. It's kind of just like Aegon came and like there was no fucking around. It was just like boom, 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 boom.
Right. So because
until the last one.
You have to think about what George is doing right now. George is building a history.
Well, he's kind of like, I'm gonna make the characterization of these families real simple and quick with this guy. Right. Kind of like this guy is basically gonna teach the audience while teaching that actual character from that family in the book who they really are. Like who their family is, who they are, what their future generations are going to act like. Like I think he does that well. That he does that well. Each fucking castle he goes to, each castle like basically tells the story of that family.
Right. Yeah, of course. Yeah.
So this is the
like
ground
that's
level.
What's beautiful of it.
This is the ground level. So I think the cracks where the theories come in, they're just one or two more layers higher.
Yeah.
You're a tinfoil hat guy. All right, so Lord Lannister is given Lord Paramount of the Westerlands. Boom. Aegon setting up his new kingdom. It's pretty much he's pretty much filled out his whole roster, but you have the North coming down. The Vale basically, the Vale just kind of just associates with the North, but they're just assholes. Do you always treat how do you guys, what's your opinions on the Vale?
I think the Vale uses the mountains to protect themselves, the Eyrie to protect themselves. They are, they never really have to get involved with too much goings on down below them because their mountains protect them.
Okay, so let me ask you this question because I always have this question about the Vale, and then we'll get into the North walking down and saying we're sorry because this is actually a really boring chapter.
Sorry. Sorry.
Guys, returning around. Sorry, Mr. Dragon. We'll never talk to you again. So the Vale, like every city in Westeros, when shown, has an importance. Even all the way you break it down to fucking the twins. Like it's a bridge that everybody needs, and that's what this family was built off of. when you go to the Vale, it's kind of just like what's their main resource? I guess they're copper, right? Okay, so they produce copper. It's a big thing there. That's why you always see their armor has a copper on it, and I believe one of their colors is bronze or copper or one of it, right? Yeah. So, but what does the Vale do for Westeros other than like just hide up there?
Right.
Well,
Yeah.
go ahead.
Well, I
Go
mean,
ahead,
just to answer your original question, I mean, what they say about the Vale is that every time a war breaks out in Westeros, the Vale, what they do is they close the bloody gate.
Yeah, they close the bloody gate, and
that's
but and
do.
then what happens then is the mountain men. What are they called? The
mountain men.
The mountain men, which are great in the books, in the show. They were just greatly portrayed. They're like, once again, they just basically took just like nomads and what's it called? Like barbarians and just threw them in there and it just fit perfectly. I don't remember what I was talking about. Damn it.
So yeah, the Vale will be important.
Literally. They just closed their gates. They just closed their gates. And then the mountain, they start going down and fighting the war. Then, like, they start getting in people's business and shit. Like, because
they like sell swords. They're like,
exactly. But like yes. I hate the Vale. Everything. The moon door is stupid.
I like the moon door.
First of all, don't confuse the Eyrie with the Vale. The Vale is that a richly abundant, fruitful area down below at ground level that is behind the gates, right? So you got to go through the gates, and then you hit the Vale, and then as you remember in Catelyn's chapter, I think of the first book. Yeah, first book.
That's when
I kind of describe it pretty well. It takes them a while to get through the Vale to get to the foothills of the Eyrie, and then they start climbing, right? And they start going up. So I think it's actually a really cool place.
I know what chapter I love, or I don't know if it's just an episode, but it's a chapter too. When Rob Stark is marching down south, and it's the first time Catelyn sees him, and when she's first walking up to him, it's actually starting to snow, and they're in the Riverlands, and she's like, "Winter's coming," and she's like, "Nah, winter's just following him." Right. That's the fucking best. Cool. I was like, "Yo, that gave me goosies." All right, so. Yeah. So we are at, I don't know. We were going off on the Vale. So let's go back to where we're at right now. All right. So he conquers the West. Boom. Done. So what's left, boys? We got the North, and we got the South. So he stopped, looked both ways, took both ways. Now let's look up and down. Okay. So he looks up and they're already walking down. The North is walking down, I don't know what they called it at that time, but they kind of basically follow the path of the King's Road, and he pretty much assembles a pretty big. I think they give them 18,000, which is, remember, that's a huge amount for the North. Yeah, that's a huge amount for because Northmen, first of all, fight stronger.
I think it's 30. Yeah.
So, okay, I was gonna say 30, but I thought this was one of those ones where they do the 18.
I think they come below the neck too, right? So they're like actually in like the.
Oh no, they're low. They're low. I think they meet at the gift. Or not the gift, the God's Eye.
That's correct. Or
everything, every big
deal,
Stark occurrence in their history occurs at the God's Eye, dude.
Yeah, God's Eye is going to be a big deal going forward.
God's Eye is going to be a big deal.
Yes, that's one of my girlfriend's huge things. She's like everything, like every conspiracy she follows goes back to the God's Eye. I'm like, you're just obsessed with that. Like, you're not even a good conspiracy person. You're just.
I think that's where the Night King dies in the books at the God's Eye.
Me too.
There is a Night King.
That's my belief. If there even is one. So I believe his name was Brandon Stark at that time, right?
Torrhen
Stark. Torrhen Stark is walking down basically the King's Road, and does he see what happens at the Field of Fire or just hears about it?
Sees it afterwards.
Okay, so he mobilizes his army and he sees what happens at the Field of Fire. He just sees the fuck in it. I mean, he probably had to have seen Harrenhal too, right? If he's marching down that way. Harrenhal is supposed to be big enough. He heard or saw. So he probably saw it still fucking smoking too. So he sees that. The Starks are known for, like, they don't do this. They don't just go to war for nothing. I think you see that in the show a little bit when Rob calls the banners, it's not like a joking matter. And you see the Northerners treat war like it's not a joke to them. Like this is serious. You know, you have great big John Umber like, you know, laughing and giggling and shit, but like then when shit got serious, like this is war, you know? So the North marches these, you know, it's a lesser group of men, but that's their special forces going down there right now to meet, you know, fate basically, because they're last ones up other than Dorne. And Dorne, remember, at this time has already been tried to, because when we get to Dorne, we're going to have to go back and tell you that at this point in time, I believe Rhaenyra is missing, right?
No.
No. Not at this time?
Not at the North.
No, because she reigns as king. Yes. My bad. But okay, so what the hell is his name? I forgot his name again.
Aegon,
no, Torrhen Snark. Torrhen Snark. So Torrhen Snark is driving down the King's Road, and he sees the destruction at Harrenhal. He sees the destruction at the Field of Fire, and he's like, guys, we cannot do this. I think does Aegon meet him like battle's about to start and it's kind of like the first meeting, or do they send an envoy? I think he goes and meets him, right?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, they have a conversation.
The armies gather.
The armies, yeah. So they're basically that means they were about to fight.
They're squaring off.
Yeah, exactly. So I mean, Torrhen Stark bends the knees. Forever, they're known as the king who.
Well, I know you hate the Starks, John, but don't gloss over it because it was a pretty big decision. It wasn't like one of these things that he just made on a lark. He went back to his true after they saw the destruction, and I think they did hear about Harrenhal, but they saw the dead bodies Field of Fire. They saw what these dragons could do. So I think he held a war council, and the idea was, what do we want to do? Do we want to go to battle tomorrow, or do we want to rethink this? And he had pretty much of a torn war council. Some of them wanted to go ahead and fight, and then others said, like, you know what? I don't think there's a point,
Well, it's kind of seen like that's a common occurrence. It's like any military thing. Like when you have those soldiers with that adrenaline rushing, like, we didn't come here to just turn around. Like it's even though they have dragons, but your leader is trying to save the lives of your neighbor, Correct. So it's a moral decision, and I think that's what they use the king who knelt, or like to try to use it as an insult, but it's actually a compliment. I love that aspect of it. It's like the king who knelt, but like that was a kind of a term of honor. Like, he showed he swallowed his Stark pride that is supposed to be unbreakable, and he just,
Well, he was the first one to take up Aegon on his offer.
That's true.
Keep everything.
That's true. Yes.
Aegon kept his word.
Yes.
So
he's the first and basically only until the next one. Until the Veil.
Yeah. So I guess what Aegon had there, I mean, he had about 50,000 at least people, and he had 3 dragons, and it was fight, it was retreat, or it was to hide out in, what was that castle that Theon took? Not Winterfell, but the other one he took as Reek.
Barrowtown? No,
it's not.
No. I know.
It's the Dreadfort. It's the Dreadfort.
No, the Dreadfort.
It's the one in the middle of the mud.
Yeah. Oh, well.
Whatever.
Well, anyways, not
I know
a
what
big
you're talking
deal.
about now.
Yeah. So it was either, it was fight, go back to the north, go back to that castle, and one of his bastards, Snow, volunteered to sneak across and kill all 3 dragons.
Correct.
So, he basically saved everyone's life, bent the knee, and Aegon matched his intensity. He was a man of his word, and they all got to go home and save their lives.
Yeah.
Right.
Which was probably not the way a lot of them wanted it, but
Yeah, I mean, I think
Yeah.
even in the show and in the books, I think that the Northmen, they accept death when they leave to
Oh,
go to war.
oh yeah, that
Yeah.
it's that. No, what another thing they do is when winter comes,
Send the old out.
they'll send the old out, and what do they call it? It's
Well,
something.
the old go out on their own. They don't
Yeah.
send them out, right? Yeah.
Well, no, but it has a name. It has a title. What they're doing, like it's like a inside joke, basically. Like they say they're going somewhere, but it means
Hunting maybe.
no,
I don't
yeah,
know
it's
if
something. It's not hunting, but it's something like
Right.
that. But
They say they're going, somewhere.
I
That's
think
a
like
good-
the North has just like that culture, that lovable culture. It's like the Scottish, you know what I mean? It's just like that.
Well, that's
everything they do is right kind of thing mentality where they're just always morally correct. But that kind of idea making has its negative effects too.
The thing too is like they were not as they were the old, remember, they're the first men. They're the only first men that are left. So they also didn't fall into the Andal hierarchy either of the knights. They do have lords, of course, and minor lords, but there's no knights in the North. There's no sir or anybody up.
Yeah.
So because they keep to the tradition of the first men, which was far more brutal and coarse.
Mm-hmm.
So that makes perfect sense.
Yeah, you kind of want to think about, and I try to bring up old Nan anytime I can, when she says, "Oh, my sweet summer children." These people in the North, they are not these people in the South.
Right.
So 30,000 North battlers, warriors could equal 50,000 South warriors.
Even me though, and we don't live in Westeros, but I live in Pennsylvania. Ned lives in Florida. Like when winter comes, like it's actually cold here, and it's a bitch to deal with. And like I'm sitting there and I'm cold, and like one of my tactics is just like I just say like, don't be a bitch. Like don't you know what I mean? Like don't be you're not cold. Like don't be a little like a wuss about it. So like. Mm-hmm. It's that kind of mentality where like we just think we're tougher because we handle cold weather, but it is a fact. Like it just breeds old. Like I mean, any colder culture just has that stubbornness to them that they just think they're stronger because the cold weather. But right. So basically, I'm just calling Ned a pussy.
I can take the heat. I'm down here in Dorne.
Yeah, basically, Ned, I would take a cold day over what you have to suffer through, I'm sure, right now down in Florida any day. That's got to be tough, man. That humidity, it's like walking through like, jello.
That's like my wife has grown up down here, and I grew up in the North. So I don't adapt well to the heat. I bear it. But up north in the winter, in the dead of winter, I'm pretty good. I don't like the dark, but I'm not bad with the cold. Yeah. But my wife up there, when it would go below 75,
it's the dark that kills me. I hate that.
My wife throws on the coat when it goes under 70.
Really? Yeah. Well, that's how all my friends that have moved to warm weather places now, they're like freezing all the time. It's just like, shut up. Like, I've seen you like fall into 4 feet of snow before. Like, you're fine.
You ever dig up when I'm up north? Just one last thing. So the first time we dug our garden up north, it was like in April. And it was a pleasant day, 60, sunny. We dug down about a foot, and she's like, "Oh my God, the ground is like still frozen." I'm like, "Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
This is the North. Yeah. But there's no snow. I don't understand." And I'm like, yeah. She couldn't get over the fact too that in the dead of summer, you turn on your spigot outside, your water is ice cold. I'm like, it's in the ground. It's in Florida.
I always tell people, like, people down south don't realize, like, there's like, it snows up here, but there's like 15 different types of snow you can get. Like there's snow that doesn't even bother me. There's snow that really bothers me. There's snow that's wet. There's snow that's heavy. Like, all right, Game of Thrones. So there was the North. Now let's head south. So this is the longest one out of all of them.
Well, no, we got to do the Vale.
Oh, I'm sorry. This one's quick then. We'll do the Vale. BAC, give me the quickest version of the Vale you can do, because I don't want to run too long here.
It's quick, but it's a great story. Pretty much the Vale is getting ready for war. Again, they have the Bloody Gate, so they have defense, but they don't have defense against dragons. So they have seems like the Vale always has. They have a child king that's has a queen regent, which is his mother. So, everyone's getting ready for war. and the little lord, little Aaron, his mother comes to go check on him, and you see she walks in on Visenya talking to the lord, the king.
And this isn't like the nice cheery Targaryen sister.
Yeah,
this is the one
the
who
warrior.
is scary to look at. Like she's like she's intimidating. And they don't say she's ugly or blah blah blah.
No.
They say she's just intimidating. Like
Right.
there's chicks out there like
There's
that.
no
Like you
weird-
just look at them and you're like, yo, she's probably gonna beat my ass. Like and I'm gonna love it.
There's no warmth to her. She's like pretty cold and
yes.
strong.
But she doesn't act that way really here.
No, she's
No. It was
Eternal.
it was mother, so the mother walks in and sees her child, and her child looks up at her and says, can I go for a ride on the dragon? And the two mothers lock eyes. Oh, Visenya's not a mother at this point, but the mother looks to Visenya.
Well, she is. She has the dragon.
Yeah, right. That's true. So she asks, is it safe? Is it safe for my child to go with you?
Just that mom to ma eye contact.
Right. Yeah.
Shit.
Eye
like,
to eye.
Yeah, they didn't even have to say a thing. Moms are just like, won't. Yeah, moms do
So
that.
Visenya says it's safe, but you get a little inner monologue from the mother at this point, where when the king asks her if he can go on this dragon, she says to herself,
Now, who's the Lord
only-
at this time? Before, let's just real quick update them on who the Lord
it's
is. At that time.
Aaron. It's an
Yeah.
Aaron.
Yeah,
but I'm
an
not
Aaron.
too sure is what his first name
Ronald.
is.
Ronald.
Ronald.
Ronald. Yeah.
So
Shara, I think.
so the mother says to herself, if only he knew what he was truly asking.
Right.
Yeah.
Because as soon
Well,
as she says yes, as soon as he gets on the dragon, the veil surrenders.
Correct.
So this brings me to my point of there was a different type of victory each time. Kind of that's not a revolutionary thing, but I'm saying there was a different style of victory that you've seen in history before that he used for each one of these while still connecting them to what that family would end up really acting like. It's kind of like also what George did with the tournament at Harrenhal, where everyone's behavior that night matched their family characteristics,
Yep.
because he uses this to set a painting of what the characteristics are. You're going to see the characters acting the way they're stereotypically supposed to. So like, that's kind of like selling signals for readers
that's a good
too.
point.
So, you know what I mean? Like when you're in situation, but obviously we don't know for future stuff when those situations really are,
Right.
but it's kind of just like, those are the selling signals that you don't even notice that are going on until you find out what's going to happen, so
Right.
he's a fucking artist.
Yeah,
All right, sorry.
So what are they telling us, that the veil always has a little kid running the veil, and always has the mother controlling?
Exactly. Well, I mean, literally, he used that to set his plate for the story he wrote that made him millions. So, like, if you have to think, remember, this was built from nothing. So at one point he had to just be like, okay, these people do this. These people do this. Okay, so how do I tell people that this character is going to do this in this scene? But his brother doesn't do that. But like the family is supposed to do, and now we're into Game of Thrones. So it's just that long lattice of just his brain just going like,
And before we leave the Aaron to what's sad is that he becomes the king who flew. So he leaves as the king who flew and comes back now as just Lord of the Mountain and the Eyrie, right? That doesn't even know the difference. He really doesn't know the difference. I mean, he's a little kid. He's like 7 or 8, right? But he grows up and he becomes, he's a pretty good guy. He marries a Stark daughter. And he becomes the Lord of the Eyrie. But his brother rises up in rebellion against him. After Aegon dies, and during the reign of Aenys, his brother, I can't think of his name, rises up against him. There's a rebellion in the mountain and the Vale. He actually throws his brother. He actually throws the Lord Ronald through the moon door. So he becomes the boy the who flew twice. It's like, yeah.
So we have.
By the way, the Maegor goes up and kills the brother for doing that.
So we have 6 battles at this time. Each victory was brought to us by, let's go one by one. The first victory was brought to them by strategy. Strategy won the day. It was just who was more strategic. Second battle, I mean, stubbornness lost the day. Third battle, we're at the field of fire. Just over infatuating your force to try to show force and realizing what, once again, tacticians do to dice that apart, so that was kind of arrogance, I would call that victory. Then you go to pride, so you have a victory over pride, so the king who knelt, boom. And then you have the veil, which is a child. A child. It's a magic trick. It's more of a magic. It's a show of force to a child who doesn't even understand any of it. They just realize this is better than what I have. And it's immediately squat. There's without questions, no papers, no. So there's another example of how he just builds. It's insane. Like,
John, before you go on, you've read Sun Tzu, I'm sure. The best victory is when
see how I ever write. Go ahead. Whenever I quote Sun Tzu on Twitter, I always type his name. I just put Sun, S-U-N, and then Zoo to see if I get any. I love doing that shit to people.
The best victory is bringing defeat to your enemy without actually going to war. So Rhaenys actually did the best. It only was her and one dragon, no army needed, no troops, no money, no treasure spent, and she got the whole Eyrie.
So let's send her down to Dorne.
Sorry.
So let's send Rhaenys down to Dorne. Dorne is run by a mad old lady who looks like a frog. Right. Yes. She was called the Frog. She's the leader of this area, and her subordinates call her the Frog. This lady probably is the shit, dude. She probably was she didn't give a fuck that they called her the Frog. She was like, hell yeah, I'm the fucking Frog. I'm the fucking Frog King, dog. This is why one of the reasons I love Dorne. Like, this is why I love the Martells, because this story just kicks off their story, which is why I hate how the show just butchered them. But BAC, give me a little lead into what's going on in Dorne and what gives them kind of their house title. Yeah, well, I'm glad that you kicked it over to me, because I saw you were bouncing. Ready I was ready. So, Rhaenys goes down there with her dragon, and she keeps visiting a couple of different cities, and pretty much they're all evacuated, except for women and children. So she's going, and then finally she goes to Sunspear. Now, remember, first of all, she flew over. So the hardest part of Dorne is the boneyard, or walking through the, what's it called? The boneyard?
Boneway.
Or the Boneway. So the Boneway is it's basically like trying to walk through the damn Serengeti. Like, it's Death Valley. It's literally a military blockage. Because you're going to lose half your guys through this, and then you're going to, the other half are going to die when you show up, and half the people aren't there. So, all right, go ahead. Yeah, so basically, she finally gets to Sunspear. She gets to the castle, and there's this old, balding frog lady that's just waiting for her. Toad lady. She's a toad. Toad lady, okay. Yeah. So she's waiting for her by herself. So, she lands on her dragon, and, basically the toad lady tells you, we don't have a king. I'm a girl. Out of here. Yeah, I am a girl. I am a girl, and no. First of all, I'm a girl. Second of all, I don't have a king, and third of all, and C, no. So yeah, right. We don't have kings. We have princes. We have princesses. Yeah. You're not wanted here. And don't. So Dorne was really run based off of the European style of family, where it was kind of a Florence type of run by, it's run by a family, but it's kind of like there's no strong. There's strong women. There's
Nymeria.
there's one brother that does this. There's one brother that does that. One of them, like Dorian Martell, is the example of, listen, he's the brother who was, he's the one who, it was like, he was Jackie Kennedy, he was that brother. And then this brother did this. Oberyn fought, and then he had all the Sand Snakes who were the like military for it, basically. And I love Dorne, man.
For some reason, they remind me of the Eastern Roman Empire, like Byzantium.
Oh, that's a good one. Yes, yes.
They're all a little bit more cutthroat on each other, but they dressed a little bit more exotically, like the Dornish. It's hot.
Well, it's like taking over. Well, and remember, they have Rhoynar in their blood. So Dorne is not conquered, excuse me. Dorne is populated by the Rhoynar people who fled on Nymeria's ships, and then she burnt them there and left her people.
And that's important. They're not first men, and they're not Andals.
Yes, so they're different, basically a different race. They look different. I mean, they look different. You would never see that. I mean, you see that in our continent where Americans and Mexican people have that, there's a line in the dirt, and these people look different than those people. They're in the past, but that kind of influences the way their ideology down there is, because I mean, their women are allowed to rule. That's a huge thing down there. A huge thing down there. They don't even question it. It's like they're years in advance. So now you could say that's years in advance, but is it?
But their founder was a woman, right?
Yes, so their founder was a woman. So it's kind of like, it's like Bravos, like they were founded by slaves. Of course there's freedom here. It's kind of just like, well, that's what it was established for. So, but okay, so Rain, go ahead. You were at where she kind of just says there's no kings here, we rule ourselves. And you're not going to rule us. I'm bowed, unbent, unbroken.
Right. And Rhaenys could have killed her right then and there.
Oh yeah, she has a dragon standing behind her.
She has a dragon, and she, again, another inner monologue that tells her, "Don't mess with this lady."
Well, I think this was to show the weakness in Rhaenyra. I think it was. I do.
Yeah. So she said, "I'll be back," and she goes back to Aegon and doesn't return for quite a while.
Right.
Yeah.
They put it off.
So
they put off the invasion for a while.
Yeah, I think Aegon. I think they go to Old Town before they.
Well, so yeah. Back. So at the time, Ned, and I'll hop it over to you after I kind of just intro this. So at the time that she's going down there, well, no, not when she's going down there. Kind of when they know she's coming back, and he's on his way over to Old Town to basically be taking over Old Town, but they open the doors to him, saying they want to make him their king.
Right.
So the Maesters are there, right? So the Maesters are there, and they're going to crown the king, right? Is that how they did it, or because it wasn't the Sept that crowns him, was it?
Yeah, because there was no the Old Town was the head of the Citadel, and
yes, there was no what's it called? Obviously, Baelor the Blessed wasn't born yet. So
Baelor was called. It was like the Starry.
Well, if you think about it, Starry Sept. So Old Town is twice the age of King's Landing.
Oh yeah,
its population at this time was what they said would equate to 1 million. So that's how it was always described as. It was basically metropolis. So this is where they were going to basically march through the streets as victors and get their ceremonial crown, even though it says on their trophy king of seven kingdoms, but they're still a kingdom that they didn't take over. You know?
It was like learning and religion. So it's kind of like, a Rome of its time, or Alexandria or something like that back in the day. So it was like the center of the continent until
It was assumed that Aegon was going to reign from Old Town.
Right.
And so until he announced King's Landing. But the Maesters are just so full of shit.
Who do you think they compare those to?
The Maesters?
It's funny how I
you
think
guys
of
are
this
the
too.
history buff.
So I actually compare the Maesters to the Catholic Church, not the Sept. I compare the Sept to a little bit of actual Protestant religion, like where there's that raw rock. You know what I mean?
My
dog's barking because I knocked.
I do, and I kind of don't. I see your point though. They're kind of
they're blocking science. They're science blockers.
Yeah, they are.
No, just the opposite.
Well, they're magic.
The Meisters are
but I'm saying in their world, yeah. So in their world, science is magic. You know.
But I think no, I don't think so at all. No, the Meisters are the ones, but dragons are the epitome of magic. The Meisters hate the dragons. So does the church. But I think you're right. They remind me of and they're not the religious arm, but they remind me of like the monks in that's dedicated to learning during the Middle Ages and the post-Roman period, when that was the only source of knowledge, were like these monasteries with these monks, these men who lived by themselves away from society and just read, studied, and wrote. And they kept a lot of the ancient knowledge alive.
Yes, right? Yes. That's what I was going to say.
They're not religious, though, but those guys were, but these guys aren't.
The way I'm comparing them isn't really even with philosophy or any of that. It's really the way they played the game. So they were way too important for the role they were in. They were blockers. They weren't movers and shakers. They were blockers and defenders. You know what I mean? They made their penny on being in the same room as actually important people.
Yeah.
And had their ways to fake it, I guess, kind of fake the fact that they're important. I mean, they really were. They wore a chain around them that said they know something.
But they were smart. I mean, we all love.
They were learned men, but there were few learned men at that time. But they wore a chain around their neck to show what they know. You know what I mean? They were kind of just like back in the day, college. You would wear those big hats. You would wear that outfit because you were showing off to the world. Like, I am a college graduate. That's why I wear this hat that you wear at graduation. When you have a master's, it's different. You know, that's why they had that kind of stuff.
But
go ahead, BIC.
I mean, I think I got it a little confused. I get the Maesters and the Sept a little bit mixed up, you know, the religious people. Because, you know, the Sept, you know, he prays for 7 days and 7 nights, you know, praying to the gods. Should I crown Aegon? Should I crown Aegon? It's complete bullshit.
Right.
You crowned Aegon.
Well, yeah, it's the Catholic Church in medieval time.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's made to resemble the Catholic Church in England in the medieval time. You know what I mean? They were just like, why is everybody so obsessed with God and we're out there murdering and being kings and queens? You know what I mean? Like, and then God, we all go to church on Sunday. I think that was kind of to associate with that. So,
well,
it's go ahead. It's just like the religious people in Westeros, you know, they skip every other king. You know, this king can marry his sister, but if this king marries his sister, it's an abomination.
Yeah.
The popes did the same. The popes did the same thing. Like, you know, if one pope was Spanish, Spain benefited from it. Yeah. You know, that's how it went. It was a political role.
But I do think that that although we you know, in the books you love Maester Lewin, you know, the Maester of Winterfell, but none of the other Maesters are really that trustworthy. And that scene at the end, near the end of A Dance with Dragons, the 5th book, where it's Lady, I forgot her name, but she's one of the Northern ladies, and she calls them what, the chain.
Yeah, she hates them. She hates them.
And you know, and I first realized that it's like, you know what, she's absolutely right.
Well, and this
are illiterate, and they're the only ones who read, and they get to see all the mail. They're doing all the cinema.
Yeah.
It didn't dawn on me like, you know, that they could be that much under. I think they're dedicated to that house, but no.
Well, Oh, they're not dedicated to the house. I thought they were.
No, they are, but they still have those. They still have some allegiance to their old.
Well, no, yeah, that's the thing. They have allegiance to whoever is occupying the house too.
That's correct.
If somebody comes and that changes, they don't give a fuck about the last person. Like they're open contracts.
Well, that makes sense.
I think they were used to represent like just weasels back in the day. They're weasels, you know. Go ahead.
No, but I was going to say, just to finish that though, they're loyal to their original family.
Oh yeah, they can be too.
Yeah.
Well, the Lannisters for sure. The Lannisters.
Correct.
Yeah. So what I would say, I mean, the Maesters, they're very powerful. You know, they're basically, you know, they they were sent. Their original purpose, right, was basically one. They were doctors,
Right.
so they're doctors. All these maesters, they get sent to the biggest houses, the most noble houses. So they're doctors, they're counselors. They're like Ned and John. You say that they are loyal to their old houses. That's why most of them. That's why they don't go by their last name. That's why it's Maester Lewin, Maester Pycelle.
What is that name? Do they take that name? Do you know that, like, the history?
It's just their first name, I think.
It's just their first name. Okay.
So,
Targaryen.
Yeah.
But the Maesters have been responsible for a lot of huge events across the whole entire history of Westeros. So they're getting orders, right? So they're getting orders from the Citadel, and they are carrying out these orders to their own accord. Again, they control the ravens. They read the ravens. They send the ravens. Right. So they're getting messages from the Citadel, whether it was to end magic, whether it was to kill the dragons. I mean, they've done a lot of things throughout the years that we don't even know about.
Correct.
Yeah. All right. Yep. So basically, we're back at he goes there. He gets crowned king. They say the people in the streets cheered the loudest. Blah blah blah. Right. He establishes himself as king because of title and conquest. Basically, I mean, that's a literally rule of law, that the title of conquest. So he is now ruler of conquest. I was saying title. He is now the king of Westeros, the Seven Kingdoms, and they just throw that in there. They're just like, you know what? Fuck it, just throw it in there.
And they all live happily ever after.
And they all live happily ever after.
Talk next week.
Yeah. So one of you take us through what happens to Rhaenys.
Ned, do you want to start and I'll finish?
Sure. I'm not sure how much time has passed, but they do end up going back. I think
it's 10 years.
I think so too. But they do need to bring Dorne to heel, right? They've been kept apart, cordial relations, no, not really warring too much, but the long enmity between Dorne and their borderlands, the Dornish Marches and the Stormlands, and even Highgarden and the Reach, there's constant friction. Again, Aegon tries to bring them to heel. Okay, it's not going to work. They get the same type of deal. They start going to war. Orys Baratheon leads an army by land, and it's Rhaenys who takes her dragon. Merxes? What was the dragon?
Meraxes.
Sorry. And she heads by air into Dorne. So there's a two-pronged assault coming. And with that, I don't know the full details, but I know what happened, but I don't know the details behind it.
BAC, you want to tell the details behind that?
Well, I mean, basically, they're warring, they're battling. Dorne is using guerrilla warfare tactics. They're fighting dirty.
Well, that is one thing we need to just mention real quick. Dorne just abandoned their cities. The Dornishmen and women were just not in the cities when the Targaryens took over. So even the cities they took over time, they were just taken back by the Dornish.
As soon as they left.
Yeah, so yeah, exactly. So it was kind of just like an Iraqi type pointless war where people or the Targaryens were just like, you know what, fucking let's go. We're not getting anything done.
Russia retreating in front of Napoleon and burning the crops, the villages, and so they got nothing.
Yeah,
the land, but nothing for it.
Yeah.
So I mean, I would just say, a long story short, what happened was Dorne had hundreds or thousands of archers, and these archers are sitting there. And they're all aiming at Rhaenys and Meraxes, and they're all dying. They're all dying, but they don't care. They're just they're doing their cause. They're all shooting. They're all getting burned by Meraxes until one of them hits Meraxes in the eye, and Rhaenys and Meraxes.
The eye.
Yeah,
I know.
The eye. Right?
But here's the deal. Like, I think that's just like your golden gun shot at them. But I think like you get under a couple of those scales. And like they die. Like I think they can be pierced. I mean, we saw it obviously with.
I think they can be pierced with the werewood. I think werewood.
I agree.
Do that.
So that's a good call.
Yeah,
but she was on
dragon glass. Yeah.
Yeah. So Meraxes and Rhaenys fall to the ground. Meraxes is killed Rhaenys is killed,
Killed,
perhaps.
MIA.
Yeah, MIA. And then let's fast forward to when Aegon receives
So
a
Aegon,
letter.
this is about.
Oh, but
I don't
before
know.
you do that, go back and tell him, what happened to Orys Baratheon's army finally. Remember, he loses his sword hand.
He loses
So,
his
yeah.
sword hand. Yep.
Yeah. So they go back to Conquer Dorne, and Orys Baratheon, he's an older guy at this time, correct? So he's an older guy at this time, and they go back and what's the exact story? Why he loses this hand? Was it just in battle?
Yeah, it was just in battle. I don't think it was against a famous warrior.
But he got the hands back of the guy who got his hand, and he wore them on the way back because this was one of the times they took it over and they just took it back. So he took over the place. Then they ended up leaving because they're just sitting in an empty city. And he found the man who cut his hand off, and he took both hands and feet from him, and he hung them around his neck. And they think that's what caused the future passing of him in the bone way on the way back.
I gotta admit, I like the House Baratheon. I always
love them. I love them. I love
really
them.
tall, dark hair, blue eyes.
Yeah.
They're all a lot
They're
of
just
fun.
they're just big, loyal, dumb idiots, kind of.
Yeah,
But they're not dumb. It's just like they're jocks,
The Laughing Lord was one of them.
Uh-huh.
They're cool.
The Laughing Storm. Yeah, that's a great
Laughing
nickname.
Storm. That's what it was. Right.
All right, so
okay.
that kind of leaves us at Aegon's rule. So we'll pick up next live show at that. So we'll just do Aegon's rule, Aenys rule, and Jaehaerys. Not Jaehaerys.
Well, you want to go over the letter.
Back up, John. Those are already recorded.
Yeah,
so
that's where we're going to. Well,
You
it's not going to be. It's not live. I'm sorry. We have a recorded episode of these, but we're going. I believe we did Aegon's rule. We just did the first three, right?
And
Yeah,
Jaehaerys.
first three,
four.
three, and then we did
Four.
Jaehaerys. Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
But
we're
John,
gonna
you
go
want to
back.
go over the letter? You want to go over the letter that Aegon
Oh yeah.
received
We didn't
from
even
Dorne?
go over the letter. So the letter. Yeah,
That's the
no. You
ending.
know what? No, fuck it. We'll start. Let's start next time with because that kind of starts that's more or less he's ruling then.
I'm starving, or I need a Steve Robinson bottle, and my little thing of eye drops isn't. But no, it's a review.
So,
It's
yeah.
so captivating.
Give us a review and we'll actually break it down next time. I mean, we're already at 2 hours. I don't want to hold.
Exactly. So we're going to this went live. We've already got 4 episodes in the can, as they say. Those will drop when, John? Friday?
Those all drop Friday.
Right.
Yeah.
And then we're going to do another recorded episode of after Jaehaerys analysis. And then we're going to do a live dance. Folks, a live Dance of the Dragons. Maybe 2 parts.
What?
Maybe 2 parts.
Live.
That means all 2 of you watching, you better not split those up. Guys, thank you so much. We will pick back up with episodes we already recorded, so they're all going to come out at once. I think we're going to try to use this to see if it works, where we just drop these Kings episodes as recorded episodes. While we're recording those, we'll be doing live shows of smaller topics, so we don't go 2 hours on you. Exactly. Smaller topics, meaning something like we did one of prequels, one of dreams, one of something like that. So we're just trying to throw stuff at the wall and see if any of it is actually real poop. So we appreciate you guys putting up with us dealing with our schedule. We talked about this. We're terrible at scheduling, but we will get you some Game of Thrones content. That's all that matters, right, boys?
We will.
The only one on YouTube, by the way. We are
the only.
We looked.
Yeah. No, literally, it's so hard to find people. Just you 2 guys in the whole world that talk. Thanks for making all those sites. Yeah. All right, we're out of here. See you, everybody.
All right, guys. See ya.